I feel like with a story like this, you could either laugh or cry.
Oh, God.
This is from the Daily Mail.
Lord.
This is playing with fire. It could spark a lab-generated pandemic. How about that? Experts slam Boston lab, where scientists have created a new deadly COVID strain with an 80% kill rate. Why?
Great.
Why are they making this? So here's what they did. Actually simple. So the Omicron strain mutated over a long period of time. COVID goes out. COVID kills a lot of people. The Alpha strain was very deadly. Over time, it was getting more infectious, but weaker. That's how viruses tend to go. The Omicron strain was very infectious, but not as deadly. That makes sense. If something's too deadly, people die before they can spread the disease. So these researchers took the spike protein from Omicron and put it on the Alpha strain, which is more deadly, creating an extremely infectious and deadly virus, which killed 8 in 10 of the rodents infected.
Oh my God.
Why?
Wow.
Why did they make this?
Nice little Christmas present.
Yeah.
Why was Peter Daszak of Echo Health Alliance doing similar projects back before, of course, the larger COVID pandemic that happened when he was exactly looking at bats and coronaviruses in the Wuhan Level 3 Institute of Virology that, of course, had poor security protocols, according to many even State Department protocols and documents that came out there. Why did they do this? And the question is, they're doing this on even bigger levels than we could even imagine. And the argument here, the basic argument that they're making is we need to do this in order so we find a solution for it in the future. Number one, a lot of scientists argue that the probability of something like this happening naturally is virtually almost impossible. But two, why are you trying to make this current strain that much worse when you couldn't even figure out the original strain?
Right.
There is no solution. There is no medical solution towards the original strain. So why are you studying? Why are you wasting so much time looking at some hypothetical when you can't even figure out the original problem? So that's something that needs to be understood here, as well as the fact that, again, Peter Daszak is continuing to do the same experiments in other countries. We know about this because it's Boston University, but what about the studies in Laos? What about the studies in Myanmar? What about the studies going on right now in Vietnam that we don't know anything about? That Echo Health Alliance, by the way, was subpoenaed, was told by the U.S. government, hey, you got to send us your notes about what you guys were doing with the coronavirus in Wuhan. Eco Health Alliance, even though they were financed by the U.S. government, by Dr. Fauci, said, no, we're just not going to give you any of the notes. They're not being transparent, and they're being rewarded with more grants that were just issued a couple weeks ago, continuing to make viruses as lethal as they can. Why are they doing this? A lot of people speculate bioweapons. And this could be one reason why Bill Gates came out a few months ago and said the second pandemic is going to be a lot deadlier. He said that very promisingly, and who in the world knows what they're up to?
Happily, probably.
What's that saying? We spend so much time wondering if we could do it. We never asked ourselves if we should do it. Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's a good one.
I'm like reading this story where they're talking about taking this protein and making, so the Omicron strain infected mice. The mice did not die. They then created like the Omicron S strain or whatever they're calling it, and it killed 8 out of 10. And they were like, oh, look, we did it. We made something that can kill mice. It's like, I look at that and I'm like, yeah, you could have injected them with bleach. That would have killed them too.
Right.
Like, obviously, this, like, you make a deadly virus, it will kill them. I don't trust them. We had a conversation with Drew Miller, who has a PhD in, nuclear wartime battlefield stuff or whatever. And he was talking about how we have no biolabs in the United States. Like, the United States does not operate bioweapons labs. And then I'm like, it's just semantics. If U.S. laboratories are making extremely deadly viruses that they're extremely infectious and extremely lethal, and you argue they're not weapons because we don't use them for that, and I'm like, so the question is, if I have a factory that makes explosives, but we use it for mining operations,
right?
We're not making weapons. Then someone comes in, buys the company, and then sells them for war. Did we make weapons or not? Right. So like a knife company, we make fancy knives for culinary purposes, and then someone buys them and goes and fights with them. Did the company manufacture weapons? The answer is yes. Mm-hmm. They manufactured weapons. Was it their intent? No, but it doesn't matter. So we're seeing this, and I'm like, hey, that is a bioweapon. Now call it whatever you want. Say whatever you want about it. If you make a nuclear bomb and say, we just want to see if it would explode, I'll be like, yeah, okay, well, you're making nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
Right. There's no, you know what, man? And I can even make the argument, culinary knives have a purpose. You can cut your steak, what are you going to do? You want to eat dinner, this virus has no purpose. It's literal, the only purpose is killing people. So,
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, these researchers who I would assume know the coronavirus better than anyone on Earth, have looked at it more than anyone, obviously. Have they said anything in the report about, yes, this was definitely man-made in a lab? Or are they forbidden from saying that?
Do they know a lot about this virus? Since, again, the official story is we don't even know exactly where it came from.
Yeah.
We don't have an origin. We don't have a patient zero. We don't have any of that.
Well, someone knows.
Someone, of course, knows, but there's been a large cover-up effort. Echo Health Alliance doesn't want to share their notes about what they were even doing with U.S. grant money from Dr. Fauci in 2020.
Right, I thought it was someone ate bat soup a block away from the Wuhan virology lab.
Yeah, but then the
Impossible.
bat fucked a pangolin first, and that's how it came.
Yeah, there's also a pangolin involved here. I think that was an episode of South Park as well.
Right, yeah.
But again, no
that was
official
actually in the
story.
news, too.
Yeah, and ever since COVID, there have been 40 new biological labs that have been started up, doing extremely dangerous testing, mixing in viruses. And again, there's no perfect security at these places. Like, we have to understand, it takes one small mistake. It takes one hole, one puncture, one mistake, one intern, and that virus spreads everywhere.
So where is all these worthless international organizations we have, where is the international effort and treaty against proliferating this sort of research, this game of function? We have it all with nuclear weapons. Where is this going on?
Well, bioweapons are apparently banned under treaties. And that's what we were talking about last week. And so it's like, we're not making weapons. We're just making extremely deadly viruses that serve no purpose other than killing.
Yeah, right, yeah. So yeah, maybe we need to relook at those treaties again and exactly say what kind of research is permitted and what isn't.
Well, what if, this is a question that was brought up, what if all these other countries are doing it and the U.S. isn't?
Yeah, exactly.
So, with mutually assured destruction, I suppose the argument is, if we didn't have nuclear weapons, we'd be at the behest or of anyone else, the beck and call of anyone else who has nukes who can threaten us. So everybody gets them, and then you can't bully someone. You could say something similar for any kind of bioweapon. It's like, hey, we all have them, so you better not release them. If the U.S. wasn't doing it, would that be a risk? I think the problem with bioweapons is they're completely undetectable. With a nuclear weapon, we can see who did it.
Yeah.
That came from Russia, and it's a Russian missile. Somebody gets sick, we have no idea what it is or where it came from. Mm-hmm. And then it's going to spread everywhere and infect everybody.
And this is what's public. Imagine what's not public. Imagine what's secret. Imagine what else they're doing that we don't know about, that's not in the United States, that's in Myanmar or in Ukraine or wherever it may be, that these people are taking their money, investing it, and doing research in extremely poor countries where there's no transparency, there's no accountability, and they prey on poorer countries because they're able to get away with more disastrous, nasty stuff that they wouldn't be able to get away with here in the United States.
2020 could have been the warm-up, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, that's what Bill Gates says. Bill Gates says this is only one of many pandemics to come.
And he's excited.
He literally said that.
Yeah, he said the second pandemic is going to be a lot deadlier than this one is.
And I'll clarify too. I mean, this is in mice, so how that directly translates may be very, very different. It may be much, much higher in mice than it is in humans, but they're basically making the point that the Omicron they tested didn't kill any of the mice. They made it more deadly. It killed 80% of them, 8 out of 10. So we'll see. I got a prediction. I think we talked about, and this is again, we broached this subject on how a bioweapon would be released, and I said, I think that any nation that releases a bioweapon will release a mild strain of it on their own country first. Here's what happens. They create 2 viruses, hypothetically, any country. The deadly variant and the mild variant. But they're very, very similar. They share a lot of the same attributes. They release on their own population the flu. Everybody gets it. 0.1% mortality or 0.01 or whatever it is for the flu. Then they release the massive maximum 60% deadly strain on somewhere else in the world. And when that strain comes back to their country, their people already have immunity to a variant of it. So they're much, much less susceptible. We saw this with the Spanish flu. Many people wondered why it was that in China, they didn't actually get hit as hard as the rest of the world when it came to the Spanish flu. It was like 1918, I think. Mm-hmm. And one of the arguments is that a similar version was actually in China. They all got sick, but not that bad, got immunity to it. When it spread around in the trenches and with the infections and the grime, it got substantially worse. And then when it came back to China, they were already mostly immune to it. Mm-hmm. So now that we're hearing they're making... Whether or not it's this COVID virus or whatever, here's my prediction. My prediction is we see a deadly strain of COVID, but it will mostly just impact countries that haven't faced the severity of this, which I wonder which countries that is. Countries with very low COVID infection and mortality rates. I wonder what those countries are. Do you know, Luke?
Usually the places that weren't a part of the program that injected unknown rushed experimental needle into
That's
them.
not.
If you look at the countries that have the most deaths, are the places the ones that had the biggest vaccination program. Let's just be real.
Right, and and that's why they were putting the vaccination programs there, because they had more death. There are specific countries around the world, mostly in the third world, that had very low COVID death and infection rates, so they didn't bring vaccines there. But if these people don't have the immunity, either for vaccine or whatever reason, then you're going to see a deadlier strain severely impact third world countries in this case.
Well, scientists see it just, there's a lot of scientific debate that's actually being centered around this specific topic, especially when it comes to, countries like Haiti comparatively to Israel, Singapore, what happened there to other places. But at the end of the day, natural immunity is something that, again, also topic that has been censored a lot, but natural immunity has been key to a lot of people's personal health and getting through a lot of this nonsense and bullcrap.
Do you guys think Americans would be willing to lock down again? Because I question that in my head. I'm
No.
like, if they just did it all over again.
I don't know.
No way.
Where I live in New York, they would. They're dying for
Well, that's
it.
the thing. Blue states would.
They're freaking out that we're not locked down right now.
But people are moving to Florida and Texas.
Yeah.
And so the blue states probably would, because you have a higher density now of the people who want to live under the boot.
Right.
And then South Dakota, Florida, Texas, a bunch of red states, they wouldn't do it. West Virginia probably wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Did New Hampshire do it?
It depends where, because the big cities, especially with a lot of people condensed, they had their own little versions of it. But the government is very limited in New Hampshire, so it was up to a lot of personal individuals, personal businesses to decide for themselves. But as far as comparing it to New York, it was day and night to what was going on there. It depends what happens. There's also scientific thoughts and ideas that if a virus is more deadly, it's less contagious. But they're talking about how this biolab made weapon, this new strain of COVID made by Boston University.
It was a university. I just want to be. I think
Boston University.
You sure?
Yeah. You could double check just to make sure we're right on this.
Sure.
That Boston.
You're right. Yeah.
But Boston University is also reporting that this is 5 times more contagious than the original COVID virus. So
Great.
it's more contagious and more deadly. That's something pretty serious there. Because naturally, viruses just want to spread. They want to live. They want to go from host to host to host and not kill the host. Because when you kill the host, you stop the spread of the virus. Right. So this one, with the data that they're reporting, is very troubling because high death count and high transmission. Yeah.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.